My name is Ethan Mercer. I am 32 years old, and 2 hours before my father stood in front of our entire family with tears in his eyes and a framed certificate in his hands, I signed documents that would destroy the company carrying our last name. He had no idea it was already happening. At that exact moment, while he practiced his speech in the dining room mirror and my stepmother arranged candles beside expensive china plates, a legal countdown had already started ticking behind his back. In 9 days, a white envelope would arrive at his office, and nothing he said that night would matter anymore. I grew up believing my father was the strongest man alive. When I was 8 years old, he took me to one of his construction sites before sunrise. The grass was wet with morning dew, and the smell of lumber and concrete filled the air. He lifted me onto a stack of plywood and pointed toward a giant steel beam hanging across the unfinished ceiling. He told me that beam carried the weight of the entire structure. Without it, everything collapsed. Then he looked at me and said one day I would be that beam for this family. I believed every word, because back then I still thought fathers always meant what they promised. My father, Daniel Mercer, owned Mercer and Hale Construction, the biggest residential contracting company in our county. My grandfather Walter had built the company from nothing, and my father inherited it in his early 30s. My mother died from cancer when I was 7, and after that it became just me, my father, and my grandfather. Walter was the kind of man who remembered birthdays, fixed broken chairs himself, and smelled like cedarwood and old coffee. Every Sunday after church he sat me beside him in his study and taught me how to read blueprints while my father worked outside. One afternoon he looked at me very seriously and told me never to let anyone make me feel like a guest inside my own family. At the time, I thought it was strange advice. Years later, I realized he was warning me before the storm even arrived. The storm came in the form of a woman named Vanessa Brooks. My father met her when I was leaving for college. She had a daughter named Lily, who was 10 years old and loud enough to fill every room she walked into. Vanessa acted sweet in front of my father. She baked pies, laughed at his stories, and constantly touched his arm while he spoke like she was afraid he might disappear if she let go. But when he left the room, her entire expression changed. The warmth vanished. The kindness became cold politeness. 3 months after the wedding, she asked if I would move my belongings into the guest room because Lily needed more space for art supplies and dance trophies. My bedroom disappeared within a week. The posters my mother helped me hang were taken down, and pink butterfly decorations replaced them before I even finished my semester. After that, it happened slowly. Family photos changed. Then traditions changed. Then conversations changed. Every year I became less visible inside my own home. One Christmas I returned from school and noticed a giant professional portrait hanging above the fireplace. My father, Vanessa, and Lily were smiling in matching sweaters. I was not in the picture because nobody told me the photo session existed. When I asked my father about it, he awkwardly rubbed his neck and said they assumed I would be busy at school. Vanessa smiled while he said it, but her eyes never reached mine. I wanted to become a structural engineer. That dream started the morning my father pointed at that steel beam and told me I would hold everything together someday. But when tuition bills arrived, my father suddenly hesitated. Vanessa suggested teaching instead because it was cheaper and safer. I applied for scholarships, worked late nights at a print shop, and graduated with $30,000 in debt and exactly $0 from my father. He attended my graduation but left before dinner because Vanessa had reservations somewhere else. I remember watching families hug their kids while I stood alone beside folding chairs holding my diploma. The older I got, the less my father called. When I phoned him, Vanessa usually answered first. She always sounded annoyed, like my existence interrupted something important. Holidays became complicated. Invitations arrived late or not at all. Somehow there was never enough room at the table, never enough time, never enough space for me anymore. Then, my grandfather died. Walter passed away at his desk on a rainy Tuesday morning. Heart attack. He was found with reading glasses on and unfinished paperwork beside him. At the funeral, nearly the whole town showed up because everyone respected him. Vanessa complained about seating arrangements the entire time. She wanted only immediate family near the front. She meant herself and Lily, not me. After the service, Walter Attorney pulled me aside and handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter and legal documents establishing a trust. My grandfather had secretly left me 40% ownership of Mercer and Hale Construction. The shares transferred fully when I turned 30. Attached to the agreement was a handwritten note from Walter. Your father has a good heart, but a weak spine. Never surrender your place at the table just because someone else wants the seat. For years I ignored it. I built my own career designing bridges, parking structures, and hospitals across the state. I bought a small condo and slowly paid off every student loan myself. But when I turned 30 and officially received ownership rights, I tried reaching out to my father about the company. I sent emails asking for meetings. I requested financial reviews and quarterly updates. I called repeatedly. Most of the time, Vanessa answered instead. She accused me of creating tension and upsetting my father. Sometimes my father promised we would talk soon, but soon never came. Then Father Day arrived. Out of nowhere, my father personally texted me inviting me to dinner. That alone felt unusual. My Aunt Eleanor quietly warned me something bigger was planned. Vanessa had ordered decorations, hired a photographer, and spent weeks preparing. A photographer for a simple dinner made no sense. 2 days before the event, I stopped by the house to help set up tables. That was when I saw the frame sitting on the kitchen counter. Gold trim, elegant lettering. Adult adoption certificate. Lily Brooks would officially become Lily Mercer. I stood frozen, staring at it, while Lily laughed in the other room about finally becoming a real Mercer. Later that week, I went to my father's office to drop off tax paperwork tied to my ownership stake. His office door was open. Sitting directly beside his coffee mug was the adoption certificate already signed by Lily. Next to it rested a yellow legal pad filled with my father's handwriting. I read every word. He wrote about how Lily brought joy into his life, how she gave him purpose. Then came the sentence that shattered something inside me forever. He wrote that he was finally getting the daughter he always deserved. I read it 3 times, hoping somehow the words would rearrange themselves into something less cruel. My name never appeared once. That evening I called the attorney my grandfather trusted. There was a clause in the operating agreement my father never bothered reading decades earlier. If any shareholder voluntarily withdrew ownership, the company would be forced to buy those shares at full market value within 90 days. If they failed, operational control transferred to court supervision. Mercer and Hale did not have enough cash to survive that kind of payout. Friday afternoon I signed everything. The lawyer offered me 48 hours to change my mind before filing officially. I wanted one reason not to do it. Just one. I wanted my father to look at me during that dinner and remember I was still his son. Sunday night arrived. 25 relatives filled the dining room while candles flickered against crystal glasses. Vanessa wore a cream-colored dress like she was hosting an awards ceremony. Lily sat beside my father, practically glowing with excitement. My seat was placed near the far corner beside distant cousins who barely spoke to me anymore. Then, my father stood. He tapped his glass, unfolded the yellow paper, and gave the exact speech I already knew by heart. His voice cracked with emotion while he announced Lily was officially becoming his daughter. Everyone clapped. Vanessa cried dramatically into a napkin. The photographer snapped pictures while my father hugged Lily beside the fireplace. Not once did he look toward me. I quietly stood, placed my napkin on the table, and walked out of the house without saying goodbye. The legal filing went through Monday morning. 9 days later, the certified envelope arrived at Mercer and Hale headquarters. My father called me 14 times in one afternoon. I never answered until voicemail number 11, when I finally heard panic in his voice instead of annoyance. The company could not afford the buyout. To pay my 40% share, my father had to liquidate equipment, refinance properties, and cancel expansion projects. Half the executive staff blamed Vanessa for pushing me away. Investors panicked. Long-time employees started leaving. For the first time in his life, my father lost control of the company his father built. 3 weeks later, the first installment payment arrived in my mailbox. $100,000. I deposited the check quietly and went back to work designing a hospital expansion in Raleigh. Aunt Eleanor visited me soon after with one of my grandfather's old recipes. We ate together at my tiny kitchen table while rain tapped against the windows. She told me Walter would have been proud of me for finally standing up for myself. I did not feel proud. I felt tired. Because the truth is, there are no winners when your own father replaces you while you are still alive. But my grandfather was right about one thing. Your place in this world is not something another person grants you. It is something you build yourself, piece by piece, until nobody can erase it from the blueprint. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from a table where your seat was never truly meant for you. If this story hit you emotionally, drop a comment below and tell me what you would have done in my place. And if you enjoy powerful family drama stories like this, subscribe now, because the next story might hit even harder.